Hi guys, I'm Samik and I've been building SaaS applications for more than 6 months and I've been using Cursor for more than 180 days and I've been using Claude Code for more than 10 days and I have gathered 14 comparison checklists for you guys so that you can compare well and choose the best agentic coding model for your own use case. Now let's get into the video. So as you can see in this application Excel draw where I mentioned Claude Code versus Cursor or the Cursor versus Claude Code where I mentioned every coder's dilemma. So yes, before I started my journey of using Cursor, I was using ChatGPT and Claude Code, not Claude Code, Claude Desktop to copy paste my code to the editor, and I was doing through and fro motion behind that scenes. But when I chose Cursor, I was delighted by the use case. And again, when I was choosing Cursor, I had a dilemma whether I should choose Cursor, whether I should choose Windsurf or something like that. At that time, there was dilemma. Right now, I believe the dilemma between all the code is between whether to choose Cursor, Kiro, or any other IDE versus Cloud Code. So this is the checklist which you can use to understand what exactly is beneficial for your own use case and when to use when. So that's our video's example. So first ask your requirement. First ask your requirements always. So this is the thing which we need to talk about first. First ask what is your requirements. Either your requirement is UI development, either your requirement is full stack code development, either your requirement is learning, just you want to learn how to code or how to code with AI, if that is your use case, and how much control do you have? Is it a project which you are working? Is it company's project or is it a project which is your own personal project or your own side project? So you have to ask what is your requirement. Then only we can answer whether you should choose Cursor or whether you should choose Cloud Code. So I will just give a simple example for each of this. So if you're just focusing on UI, if you are a designer and you want to build React components for your UI like the Figma design library, then my suggestion would be go to Lovable Dev, go to Tempo Labs, or maybe go to ShatCN space library component and use V0 for that, which is trained on ShatCN components. So you can use those items for your UI use case. So you don't need to use Cloud Code, you don't need to use Cursor if you're just focusing on the UI development. Now, when it comes to full stack code, this again depends. You can either use Cursor or you can use Cloud Code. So the third question which comes to us and that is learning. So if you are just learning how to use AI to code in better way, then my suggestion would be to go with Cursor, because with Cursor you can literally see what are the changes going on behind the scene and what exactly to expect and how to edit. There are like a lot of features with Cursor which I will explain in the further video. But if you are just learning, I learned because I had Cursor. I was learning more when I was using Claude and ChatGPT for copy pasting. But yes, Cursor eliminates that copy pasting task and still you get to learn a lot. But if you are using Claude Code, you won't learn much. So again, define your use case first of all, and how much control do you have. So if you have like it is your own side project and you are willing to take all the risk, then go for Cloud Code. Why worry about Cursor of slow use cases, right? So you can always use Cloud Code to execute faster. So this is my 2 cents of advice on what is to choose. Now let's talk about Cloud Code versus Cursor, which is the main purpose of our video. So first of all, let's talk about these comparisons and I will give you a live demo as well. So our first point is your ID of choice. So choosing your ID. So let's get into it. So you can see this is the cursor window in which I can just use Claude. Okay. So you can see how independent Claude is. If I don't want to use Claude in cursor, I can always use terminal. So if I go to terminal and if I use Claude here directly, which you can see in the screen, if I use Claude, I can use Claude here as well, obviously. So this is the benefit you get when you're using Claude. So if I just use directly something, okay. So again, this particular command will list all the items. So we do ls. So just to make sure that I use properly. And if I do this, you can see these are all the list like files I have. So you can see I can just toggle in using my terminal and see things. So this is the benefit I get when I'm using Claude Code. So if I was not using Claude Code, I had to open one ID, then that could be cursor, Windsurf, ID of your choice, and that creates the problem. So if you want something independent of ID, like if you're using JetBrains ID or if you're using VS Code and you want to integrate something into that, then choose Claude Code. Because if you choose cursor or any agentic ID, you have to stay in that platform. So for example, if I'm using Z, I have to use Z always. I don't have any other option apart from Z. And obviously there are some plugins limit and there are a lot of limits which I have to face. But when I'm using Cloud Code, I can just, you can say, I can use directly in terminal itself. So this is the benefit you get. So we will just see the second part. So you have understood, you can choose ID of your choice. If you are going to cursor, you have to work only on cursor. But if you use Cloud Code, you can use Cloud Code anywhere in the computer. And now let's come to the model availability. See, if you're using cursor, there are a lot of models in your hand. Like right now, if it is not in auto, you can see I can get Claude 4 Sonnet, Claude 4 Sonnet 3.5 Sonnet, Grok O3, so not Grok O3, OpenAI's O3, GPT-4 3.7, then 3.7 thinking Grok 4. And again, you can see a lot of model, and if I want to add models, I can add models directly from here. So I can see all the models which I have in my hand. So this is the benefit you get when you are using cursor. And again, it comes into your usage quota. But when I'm using Claude, I can only choose one model if I'm in the $20 plan. And if I only buy $200 plan, then only I can get Claude offers full. So this is one of the big problem which you can see when you're using Claude Code. So you can see right now my Sonnet 4 is my daily use. Even if I use default, my Sonnet 4 is the only model which is available to me in Claude Code. So this is the one problem which you get when you're using Claude Code. So if you want variety of models as an option to you, then choose Cursor in that case. Now comes to the users available. So this is one of the important thing which you need to take care of. So as I was saying that I've been using Cursor for more than 180 days, and my default model in all the use case was Claude models. So I trust Claude's model a lot, and that's why it made a swift decision for me that I can easily work with Claude Code because Claude uses Sonnet in the background. And since Sonnet works very well, I know what type of output it gives. I can test it easily. So now comes the usage. So where I was using Cursor, the only reason why I shifted to Cloud Code, and that was because of the usage limit, which Cloud Code didn't have at that time. Now you can get a weekly limit and a daily limit as well. But with Cursor, you get a local like quota, something like that. They mentioned. So right now, earlier there were like 500 requests, fast requests, and unlimited slow request. Right now there is no slow request. There is only usage based request. And at the same time, like earlier there was 500 requests. There is no 500 requests right now. Like some people have prompted a lot and they have found a hack. Like they only get 200 to 300 requests a day, and some people get more, some people get less. So if you're using Cursor and if you want to use, you can use a review get MCP tool which actually halts the Cursor's request, so you can do a lot of tasks in one request only. So I'm not sure whether Cursor is counting the tokens or whether Cursor is counting the request, but that is the one of the hack which you can use. So you can see this is my Cursor dashboard, and you can see first of all I was using Claude 4 Sonnet thinking, and I exhausted the limit. So according to Cursor, I used $52 of their plan when I was using Claude 4 Sonnet thinking. But then I was testing Grok 4, Gemini 2.5 Pro, and Claude 3.5 Sonnet. So you can see Claude is very expensive model, and I use it a lot as well. So that's why it is expensive. And you can see this auto mode. So whenever I exhausted my limit, I use auto, and there is no limit in the auto, so they don't charge you for the auto model. And I have found a hack that if you try Cursor after few days or after few hours, after like some time, and if you use the auto model, if you use this model and if you try something, I think probably it uses Sonnet models behind the scene because it does tool calling very well. And I know Sonnet is the only model which does tool calling very well. and after that Gemini and other AI follows. So this is my opinion, this is my observation. And if you are just conscious about the usage, then my recommendation would be to go to Claude Code, and you will get a lot of usage limit as compared to Cursor. So right now, if I do something, I will get rate limit in 5 hours. And again, I have not for like faced any rate limit in the week limit, but this is so really great when it comes to the usage token. So Claude gives more usage token compared to Cursor. So if you're just focusing on usage available, then go to Claude Code. And if you're not focused about usage, and if you are ready to hack your way in, then you can use Cursor. Now let's come to the code base awareness. So see, Claude has no code base awareness. It uses something called memory. So if I go to memory, it uses first of all the memory. So you can see it has three memories: user memory, project memory that is local to us, and project memory that is saved into our GitHub, like which is tracked. So this project memory is something which is required. So if I go to the Claude and okay, let me search for Claude.md. So you can see this is the Claude.md file. Okay. So you can see this is okay. This is available in the root. So you can see this is the Claude.md file, and Claude actually refers this first of all, first time whenever it is making a request, and after it has made a request, then it reads particular file. So Claude don't have context awareness, code base awareness. Every time you want to edit something, it first of all read that file. So that is what Claude does. But Cursor is opposite. Cursor does indexing. So if I go to Cursor settings, and you can see there is something called indexing, which I will show you. Okay, so this is the indexing. You can see 232 files are there, and it is indexed. So whenever I want to change something in my file, Claude, the cursor doesn't read every file until and unless I tell that you should read that file. So obviously, indexing has its own issue. Every time for the instant edits, everything is not properly indexed, and again, you can see like the embeddings and metadata are stored in the cloud, but all the code is stored in the local. So indexing is done in the cloud, and cloud actually coming like whenever I search something request, it first of all gets the indexed file, and if it gets and if it doesn't get the full information, then only it do the read operation. So when it comes to code base awareness, Cursor and Claude are both at the same level when it comes to output, but when it comes to the speed, Cursor has more speed because it already has some indexing option available with it. But with Claude, it reads every file every time whenever it wants to do an edit. So this is one of the thing regarding the code base awareness. Now let's come to the AI reasoning. Again, as I told you, there is no reasoning model available in Claude Sonnet, and only Claude Opus can give you a reasoning capability, and that only works when you're using $200 plan. But if you're using Cursor, you get the reasoning available. So whatever I can use see with brain, that is like the reasoning model. So you can see these are the reasoning models. So 3.7 reasoning model, Grok Force reasoning model, O3 reasoning model, Claude Force on it, thinking reasoning model. And if I want to get maybe Opus, I can do that. But I don't use Opus a lot, and that's my personal preference. So when it comes to thinking, you can use thinking model, but you have to use Cursor for that if you're using $20 plan. But if you're using $200 plan, you can use Claude Opus model with your Claude Code. This is the fourth point, like the fifth point we have covered. Now let's come to the time to code. So as I told you earlier that Cursor has already some indexing available with it. Cursor doesn't read every time whenever it needs to make changes. It reads only about that file when like there is some misplace. For example, I did some changes in the local and which is not indexed in the cloud. So whenever Cursor tries to give an edit and that edit fails, then only it reads that file. So you can see time to code is less when it comes to Cursor. But if it is something from the scratch, then I would say Claude Code does the job better. So for example, this is an existing project. If I want to make changes here, Claude Code will take time. Cursor will take less time. But if it is a project which is writing from the scratch, like we are just pasting in the PRD document, then Claude Code is way faster than Cursor itself. That's what I've observed. So you can understand that. Now let's come to the usage-based pricing. So for example, I have hit the limit in Claude. So whenever I hit the limit in Claude Code, I have to wait. Like there's a limit of 5 hours window. I have to wait. So, for example, in a day, you get 4 resets, like 5 hours, like five resets you get in a day. But I only code maybe for 2 sessions. But in that 2 sessions, I already face 2 rate limits, and I have to wait, right? And I don't want to wait. Maybe I want to make usage based pricing, but that option is not available with Cloud Code. You have to upgrade your plan to $200 max plan. So that is one option, and there is no other option. But with Cursor, for example, I don't want to use the auto model, and I want to use Cloud Code Sonnet thinking model, and I know that I can spare $10 for this particular task, and that is very crucial for me, and I want to do it ASAP. And that time you can use CloudForce on it. You can enable the usage based pricing in the Cursor dashboard. So if you go here and if you go to settings and if you use the enable usage based pricing, then you get usage based billing. So you can see if I go to my billings, so you can see like I paid 1 month 6.85, something like that. The reason why I paid 6.85 because I used usage based pricing. So this is one of the thing which you need to understand when we using Cursor and Cloud Code. So if you don't want something regarding usage based pricing, you can go for Cloud Code. And if you want some of the tasks which you can spare a little amount of money for usage based pricing, then go for Cloud like the Cursor. So this is the one thing which you have to understand. And this is we have covered the first part. Now let's come to the second feature which is very important for us, and that is inline edits and tabs. So why I use Cursor, why I use Cloud Code inside Cursor, the reason is very simple. Whenever I like hit the limit of Cursor, I can still use the tabs. So tabs option is always available to me. So there's always, so right now it is not suggesting me something. So maybe I try something. Let's see. This is non okay. Right now it is not suggesting me tabs right now, but it suggests tabs. So maybe I open one code and let's see whether we can do this. Okay, right now it is not, yeah, you can see it is suggesting date. So it is suggesting me tab value whether I want to use or not. So if you want, it is like the copilot behavior. So that is one of the thing. Again, if I use this all and if I press Command K and if I say make it more reasonable or maybe add more commits. So you can see I am using Claude 3.7 Sonnet model here, and for this I don't get any charge. Like it is included in my Pro plan. So if I go to the cursor and go to the usage, so you can see I have used Claude 3.7 a lot. So if I go to the tokens, so you can see this is the one Claude 3.7. This was again inline edit. I used 7,899 input tokens. It got me 11 output tokens, and for this task it got like 10,666 input tokens. Again input tokens. This actually used 13,782 input tokens and 8,000 output tokens, and this was all inline edits. So this is something which you will always get, but with Cloud Code, whenever you are hitting that usage limit, you don't get any inline edits. So this is one of the thing, Command K and the tab. So this is the one thing which you always get when you're using Cursor and if you buy the subscription. And that's it. That is what inline edits and tab is. Now comes to the sub agents. Okay, so every time whenever I'm using Cursor, I actually have to generate cursor rules. Okay, so this is one of the things, I can generate cursor rules, but that cursor rules I have to invoke, or maybe I need to do something like there is no way I can make in one particular edit in this file and it is available to all the files. So, but with Cursor, with Cloud Code, you get something called sub agents. So, sub agents are nothing but, for example, okay, sub agents are nothing but it is something, for example, I want to check whether my design principles are matching or not, whether I have fixed all the bugs or not, whether my new Git difference, like the new code which I've written, whether it contains any bug or not, whether it contains any security leaks, memory leaks or not. So I can create an agent which runs automatically. You can see code reviewer, code simplifier, security reviewer, tech lead, UX reviewer. So you can see I can create different type of agent, and Claude will run this agent automatically based on the task. And if it is not running, you can always call that agent and it will run that agent. So you can say for general purpose, you can create no agent. So this is something you can create which is called the agent, and you can use agents, sub agents. So this is something Claude Code gives you, but Cursor doesn't give you. So if you want to build something with agents, you can use Claude Code. And again, when it comes to web search, there are a lot of things which goes behind the scenes. So the web search which is given by the cursor, I don't feel it is very good when it comes to result and comprehending that web result. So what happens? Claude is the team which has built the web search. Claude is the team which has built the Claude Code, the Anthropic teams, right? And they are the team who have built the model as well. So they have integrated everything so well that you don't have to worry. So this is the benefit. So if I do something web search, anything, so and I maybe tell it to comprehend the result, give me the final summary, it does the task very well because they have designed it such a way that the agent understands the web search very well, and they are using their own web search tool. But when it comes to cursor, the team which is developing the web search is the cursor team. The models are from different AI providers, and these comprehension, like understanding of the web search, is not good when you're using cursor, but the understanding of web search when you're using Claude Code is more better, and it gives better results, better output, and it do better web search also. So for when it comes to web search, I have observed that Claude Code does the job better compared to cursor. Now let's come to the MCP server. So I am not using MCP servers in Claude Code. The reason is very simple. I cannot actually manually like give permission to Claude whether to run this tool. It actually skips permission, and because whenever I give permission to auto accept the file or maybe something like that, it actually edits that file, right? So whenever I'm giving the auto accept permission, it actually runs the MCP command as well. But with cursor, I can review all the MCP command execution. I can see whether that execution is happening in the right form or wrong form, and I can cancel that and I can reprompt to do it better so that there is no mistake. Because AI can always do like little bit mistakes, and I need to see what type of MCP tool calling it is using. So which is very crucial. And I can also see the UI, whether what input was given, what output was like fetched. So I can see that here in the UI itself. So if I have not used any MCP tool right now, let me see whether I've used any MCP tool in the chat history. Here, let me do one thing. Implement lazy. Okay. So you can see, okay, this is the MCP tool, the review gate chat which I was using. So you can see I have completed. Please review the work provided. So this is something which it has sent to review gate, and I cancel this request. So I can see the input, I can see the output. So you can see it was the input, it was the output that it was not connected, and this is how I use the review gate MCP server, and I can use other MCP servers in the similar fashion. But with Claude Code, I cannot actually control it, manually edit it, and I cannot actually see all the input and output. I can see it using Control R, but I have not seen better results. Like the UI is not good when it comes to reading the MCP servers log. So if you're using MCP servers a lot, obviously use Cursor if you can. But again, Claude also does the thing very well because it uses Sonnet behind the task, and Sonnet is better in tool calling, that we know. And again, the auto accept. So this is something which is very important for me. As I told you, if you are someone who is learning, like for example, I don't know what is types. For example, this directory, whatever this directory contains, check disposable mail user.ts. I don't know anything about this, and I want to learn. So whenever cursor do any changes in the UI, for example, it is making changes here, I can see each and every line edit, so I can know. So whenever I'm telling it to add a user table, I can know that it is going to the schema, and it is also referring that schema entity to some UI based item. So I can see what files are edited. But with Claude Code, I can manually edit it, but it will slow the process down. But in Cursor, it does everything in parallel, and I can go and review and see what changes were done exactly. And if, for example, I don't like this particular, for example, this was suggested by Cursor, and I don't like this part, but I like the other part of the file. I can reject this particular thing directly. I can get accept or reject, but with Cloud Code, either I have to accept the whole file or I have to reject the whole file. So that is one issue. So that's where the auto accept comes in. Now let's come to the checkpoints. Checkpoints is something, for example, I am building a lot of things. So you can see this is one checkpoint. This is one checkpoint. Okay. So for example, till this part, everything was good. But when I prompted this message and prompted this message, I got very bad results. And I want to revert back to this particular solution, to this particular checkpoint. With Cursor, I can do that, but with Claude Code, I cannot do it. So this is one of the problem which you will face a lot. And if I want to revert back, I have to make git commits every time whenever Claude Code suggests something. And if I want to go back, there is no checkpoint in Claude Code. So this is one of the problem with Claude Code, and this is one of the problem benefit with Cursor. So you get that advantage of checkpoint. And if you are learning, and if you are newbie, and you have the ability to use Cursor for now, you can use that, and don't need to move to Claude Code until you are very comfortable with every code edits it suggests. So again, this is where checkpoints come in, because I didn't know TypeScript before I started coding. I know TypeScript right now, about what are types and how to give and how they communicate, what are the reacts like use state, use effect, what are those. I right now know it. I never read the documentation. I always just saw what Cursor was doing, and I asked what exactly this was done, and I can see every like edits and everything. But with Claude Code, you won't get the opportunity to learn, because it focuses on like less time, and it gives the result as fast as possible. So these are the few things which differentiates Claude Code and Cursor when it comes to checkpoints. Now let's come to the GitHub Actions. So right now Cursor has launched its feature called Bugbot, but you can see my free trial is ended on July 29. I cannot use it anymore. But if you're using Claude Code, it is still now free, and you can run PR actions in here. So whatever commits I do, and whenever I open a pull request, it actually runs behind the scene. So if I open my any project, okay, so I will use MCP1. Okay, I will go here and I will show you the pull request and what exactly I mean by that. So if I go to the closed one, read payments. Okay, let's go to this. So you can see whenever I open this pull request, Claude actually made a to-do list, and it read in like all the changes in my code, and it suggests me these security issues, bugs, unused state variable, dead code, potential runtime error. And this was something Claude Code did for me. And I actually did what? I just installed a GitHub app. So if what you can do, you can just install a GitHub app, and it will install a GitHub app into your current repository. So this is something which you can do. And whenever you open a pull request, it actually runs a code like the code. And whenever you want to access the PR comments, you can access the PR comments from this command. And if you want to review the pull request, you can review the pull request as well. So this is the benefit you get when you're using Claude Code, but if you're using Cursor, you don't get this benefit. So this is again one of the thing. If you're someone who pushes everything on GitHub, and you are working with multiple teams, then Claude Code is more beneficial compared to Cursor. This is where it gets an edge. And this actually wraps our comparison. And this is all you need to know, whether you should choose Cursor or whether you should choose Claude Code. If you are a beginner, go with Cursor. If you are someone in the intermediate level, go with Claude Code. And if you have the budget to buy both, then buy both. So my workflow is, whenever I exhaust the limit in Claude Code, I switch to Cursor autos mode. And till the time the Cursor actually edits all the thing, and Cursor like it exhausts all the items, till that time Cursor, like the Claude Code, like reverts back with its new rate limit. So I can use both at the same time, and my flows keeps on continuing. So this is the one benefit which I get when using both of them. And again, obviously, as I mentioned, that there are different things which Claude Code has missing, which Cursor has missing, but together they are a very robust environment. So this is something which I wanted to tell you, and this is the wrap up video. And from tomorrow, I will most probably make videos on SaaS applications, how to build, how to make things better, and maybe a lot more than building. So this is all about building. Like in my previous series, I have included how to build MCP servers, how to build authentication in MCP servers, and I have given open source repositories so that you can build applications which use subscription or one-time payment. I have also built a video on how to build Mac OS application using Electron, and I've gathered a lot of tips on building. Now it's a time that we move on to the second level on distribution. So I'm thinking of how to do distribution. I'm learning the things, and I will get back to you when I get comfortable. Until that time, keep building and happy prompting. And see you in the next video, guys. Bye.